From TRICHOMES.com, I'm Jarod Duggins, and this is the Careers in Cannabis podcast. On this show, we speak with staffing agencies, cannabis companies, and seasoned traditional market executives in order to obtain a better grasp on the current employment climate and what we might be able to expect of our burgeoning cannabis industry. On today's episode of Careers in Cannabis, we sit with Bryan Passman, founder and lead hunter over at Hunter and Esquire. Hunter and Esquire is a retained search firm. During today's episode, Bryan goes into details about some of the main differences between traditional staffing agencies and a retained search firm and why one approach may be more fitting to you than another. Cannabis acceptance is on the rise, and so is the demand for good people to help our industry grow. If you're looking for a job in cannabis, you're on the right podcast. Let's get to it. Bryan Passman of Hunter and Esquire. Bryan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jarod. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. And, as the personal check-in and seeing how you guys are doing there, I know you're over in Florida, kind of the Miami area. How are things going over there, Bryan?
We are hanging in. I did hear a report from someone today that I think we had a record number of new cases, COVID cases reported here in Miami. I think it was yesterday. So that is a little bit unfortunate, but overall, in my circle, I can report we're all feeling well, and it seems calm so far as I can tell.
Well, it's great that on the personal level, everybody's doing well. I'm much like yourself. It's very few personal reference cases as to where I know an individual with COVID, but at the same time, I am reading the headlines that you are, and California seems to have doubled in its most recent numbers as well surrounding COVID. So it'll be interesting to see not only where that progresses to and what perspectives traditional media intends to provide us versus what's actually going to be happening as the cannabis industry tranches on and continues towards its path of becoming a regulated industry. So within that, and the segue into that topic is, we're going through these ups and downs, much perpetuated by traditional media, we're really waiting on bated breath for whether or not it's okay to go outside, or if what actually is going to be okay, and where that new norm begins. Are you seeing new trends emerge within hiring patterns right now, or new opportunities within cannabis right now?
Yes. So I think the best hiring trend of all is just that I think most cannabis companies have returned to the pace of hiring that got us so excited about the industry up until a few months ago when the pause button was hit. So for us, a few weeks ago, that changed dramatically. So that's one big positive change. Another change that we've taken note of is a bigger focus on revenue generating roles, which were always, of course, sought after, but we've experienced a big uptick in asks for really talented sales and business development leadership in our clients and in existing and new clients. The return to other essential roles being hired for in terms of finance and operational leadership, that was paused a bit, but that's also come back. I think supply chain is being looked at a little bit more closely, and that's an area we've seen either roles being created finally, where a company is going to bring in a director, VP, or chief supply chain officer, or simply building the supply chain expertise into some other operational roles more so than before, which I think is of course a good thing as well. So all good stuff right now. Lots of good vibes. We're feeling good about where we are as an industry and as an agency over here.
Fantastic. Well, as an agency, Hunter and Esquire is, as we described in the intro, is described as a retained search firm. Can you describe to our listeners the difference between Hunter and Esquire and traditional, let's call it, staffing service?
Sure. So our approach is probably a little bit more intensive than maybe your average staffing agency. We talk about it in terms of white glove and concierge. I think it boils down to just a very high level of availability and responsiveness and follow up and care. So our retained model calls for a little bit of a higher percentage than other search firms, and a fraction, a third of that is paid up front as a retainer, so we can put our resources towards it. It comes with a guarantee. I don't know if other agencies guarantee a time frame to deliver talent. I think we offer one of the lengthiest employment guarantees in the industry as well, and we're happy to do that because, again, we really truly care about engaging with people. We I think operate a little bit differently in that we don't hide behind messaging of any sort. We genuinely love getting on the phone. It's only through those live conversations that we can understand the personal and the professional and the financial and everything else, all of the emotional and other factors that people go through when making a decision about who to hire or make a decision about where to go work. So the retained model with the money up front gives us the cushion and the comfort to really truly put all of the resources, time being everyone's biggest luxury and most valuable resource, ours included, towards really getting to know, again, client, candidate, and more effectively measuring fit. So, a couple of things we're proud of as a result of that are our rates of acceptance and stick. So through that, we've been able to achieve a real 100% acceptance rate. Every offer our clients since 2017 has extended to talent has been accepted. And pre-pandemic, and which in the resulting layoffs, our stick rate was 94%. And that, a lot of our hiring partners should get a lot of that credit because they subscribed to our process and followed through with it and made the right decisions that we simply facilitated.
Those percentages are amazing, and a lot of that's going to come from your experience preceding Hunter and Esquire, and as lead hunter, founder and lead hunter, just as many other people who come into cannabis with pre-existing experience or traditional market experience. How is it that you came to get into the staffing or recruiting or executive search firm, talent search, if you will, prior to cannabis, and how'd that translate into cannabis for you?
Yeah, that's a fun story. So like many, I did not know what I wanted to be when I grew up. When I went away to college, I simply went away to the University of Florida to get that piece of paper because my parents said I should, and I had a lot of fun doing it. Somewhere along the way, I decided I'd be a finance and economics major and go work in the banking industry. And just for some other reasons, I needed to come back to South Florida, and there were not very attractive banking jobs. And I figured I'd be a good sales guy, and I wanted to earn a good living. And I had friends that were selling medical device products, and I ended up meeting someone that ran a medical device search firm who I had thought was trying to place me in a medical device sales rep job, and instead he was vetting me to join his team, which I did. It was a fun opportunity to work in the space. It seemed lucrative and a good opportunity to really, learn the whole industry. So fast forward 15 years later, I exited there as the SVP of recruitment for that firm. We spent 15 years together placing compliance and operational and R&D and clinical and regulatory and a lot of very technical leadership all over the world. You name it, we brought a leader into a medical device or biotech company. And I left to pursue something in cannabis that didn't quite work out. So I returned to agency life, fortunately for me, in consumer packaged goods, and landed a client concierge role where my focus was on the adult beverage client portfolio. So ended up spending about 2.5 years, getting to know that space and the 3-tier system, and getting more experience placing commercial leaders, and in terms of building sales and marketing teams and presidents and CEOs in that space. And then finally in 2017, decided it was time to go off on our own. We had heard from many that this was an unmet need, that good, strong, retained search for executive leadership was not being offered to the industry at that time. So we decided to raise our hand and serve that. I have to give a lot of credit to the Esquire here at Hunter+Esquire, Jessica Passman, my wife. She's a very entrepreneurial lawyer who had come out of a very successful startup of her own, and volunteered to handle all the back of the house stuff that was really scary to me when I thought about launching my own firm. And as the rest is history, I guess you could say it's worked out nicely, because she doesn't want to live on the phone all day as I do, and I sure don't want to do what she does. And we respect each other's roles and don't want to do each other's jobs. And, we had been married for a decade before, and we had been through a lot. So the ups and downs of this industry and running a business together have really been a piece of cake for us. I have to say, it's been easy. A lot of people ask, what's it like to work with your spouse? And I'd be lying if I didn't say I was a little bit scared of that too. But it's been great. The one negative is that work never stops. It's just, all we do is talk about this, but fortunately we love what we do. So not a big negative, but I guess our kids would probably enjoy it if we took some time off. They've probably heard the word cannabis and me on the phone with cannabis clients and candidates more than they should probably hear and speak about at school, but that's where we are right now.
Well, hey, Bryan, I actually I can identify with that as a parent, but I do believe hearing us on the phone and going through this is part of the process of normalizing it for the generations to come. So kudos for, well, at least having the conversations in front of them and letting them know that it's more of a normal conversation than we grew up with, at least.
Yeah, I think, and it is a little bit, I guess, relieving when we go for something at their school, when we were going to their school, and one of their teachers will say, "Well, your son told us this and that about what you do. We think that's cool. That's great," or whatever positive things they have to say about it. So it's not been an issue at all. It's just yeah, I don't know if there's a lot of other 6 and 8-year-olds running around with the word cannabis in their vocabulary as much as our guys have it.
Yeah, well, it's that was a precarious line coming from the traditional market myself. That was always something that was precarious in nature and realistically didn't come up as a conversation in the family until all of a sudden I was getting into the sales of hydro equipment, and my son was the first 4th grader on his back with a hydroponic branded backpack going into 4th grade because he loved the camo backpack. And I was like, oh, well, yeah, you can take it.
There you go. That's great.
So, gone through that. But again, normalizing this conversation is going to lead to the stigma being dropped as this industry does become something more of a staple within the life and the existence along the way. I know there's, getting back to Hunter+Esquire, you guys started maybe a little bit of a different direction, and based upon your experience, having worked internally for that medical device sales and whatnot. If I'm not mistaken, in our previous conversations, you had described kind of an internal function versus an external function, and the difference between Hunter+Esquire and a company called The Gig. Would you like to go into that and describe what that is?
Yeah, so we right when we launched in 2017, we were The Gig. And we did launch as a retained executive search firm. The Gig, in all caps, is The Grass is Greener Global. And we were pretty proud of ourselves. We came up with that one on our own, and we thought it was memorable and and I guess relevant without being can of this or can of that. But we did have to make an adjustment. I think some people in the industry viewed it as a little bit too kitschy. We had some larger clients and publicly traded clients that weren't, as far as their board members weren't really into having the gig name attached to a press release on a new executive hire. And we did miss some opportunities where some friends of ours were bringing the name to the boardroom to vote us in for some search help. And some people that were used to hearing other names out there of your bigger prestigious executive search firms just had a poor reaction to the name. So we did fight that for a while because we had a conversation around, well, there's Yahoo and Google and other companies out there with these funny names. Let's just deal with this perception because most people did appreciate the name. And we did break down last year and go through a rebrand. And it was an interesting kind of conundrum because we did like the gig and we did not want to completely scrap it. And so when we agreed to rebrand as Hunter and Esquire, a lot of things were happening at that time. We had some large clients, one very large MSO that we had brought a lot of market leaders onto the team for around the country that were then asking if we could help staff up stores and cultivation sites. And staffing is a different skill set than retained executive search. And I do not. I know staffing now, but I did not feel comfortable saying yes to those staffing requests from clients along the way. So instead of continuing to say no to that, we did opportunistically pick up some talent that we knew of out there that had some very relevant staffing experience and wanted to work with us. And what we did was convert the gig to a staffing agency. So I guess we have like a small house of brands over here where we have this sort of more of a total talent solutions provider opportunity where really the focus is building the Hunter and Esquire brand and then feeding the gig the other maybe more frontline worker team building opportunities that come up as a result of the other work that we do as Hunter Esquire. So we do have someone who manages the gig for us, a tremendous person that has a lot of staffing experience and leads a great team. Both are boutique agencies, so just to be clear, they're still small and boutique with a high level of focus on that concierge experience for everyone involved. But I think very different skill sets, and I think it is important to keep them separate because those are different fee structures and they are different levels of service where a company that uses the gig for staffing does not necessarily want our team involved as in the same in-depth manner all the way through interviewing and debriefing and offer negotiating and whatnot. There's a lot less negotiation that goes into, well, is it going to be 15 an hour or 16 an hour for this person to work behind the counter as you get with a CEO offer negotiation. So it just made sense to keep them separated, and that's probably been about a year now that we've had that set up. And I think I'm very happy we did it. Personally, I was very attached to the gig name, and I can say I told you so now to the team because we kept it and it's working out quite nice.
Yeah, well, no, that is a success story. And by way of needing to rebrand, it seems like even though you're still a boutique agency, what it did was broaden your scope of service, meaning that if someone happens to come to Hunter Esquire in one fashion and it might not be the perfect fit, the gig might actually be a little bit better or vice versa.
Right. And then and now we're in the middle of taking it even one step a little further, that we are aligning ourselves with a group out west who's launching sort of it's termed a cohort. It's probably just for this conversation, it's a lot like a contract staffing agency where some people that are very experienced in the space who have provided a lot of consulting work to cannabis companies. They have a large group of friends, and it's growing fast that that wanted to centralize their efforts. So we're going to join them in sort of a board role where we can assist them with vetting of the talent that comes into this operation, and then have that as another kind of tool to support our clients, because we are in sort of a gig economy here, in the way of a lot of cannabis companies getting back to needing people, but some are a little gun shy because we don't exactly know what's on the horizon. It's even more fuzzy than it ever was right now. So if you need finance or marketing or other help, a lot of companies are making the decision that it's much safer just to hire someone for 3 months of help rather than a full-time executive hire. And so we can also now deliver on that ask with this new partnership.
Be it Hunter and Esquire or the gig or your newfound cohort, where is it that they go to find you? On the internet, first of all, and maybe your handles included.
Yeah, we are at HunterEsquire.com. So our name is Hunter+Esquire, Hunter and Esquire. The website simply HunterEsquire.com. And there is a link there to the gig within that site. Of course, we have a LinkedIn page. Our Instagram is Hunter_Esquire. We are not on Facebook or Twitter.
Thank you for that great information, Bryan. And, I can't wait to have you back again. Make sure you catch all the updates at HunterEsquire.com and check in for the next episode of Careers in Cannabis, where we check in with Bryan Passman and Hunter Esquire on what's new to the scene. Thanks for joining us, Bryan.
Thanks, Jarod. And, thanks in advance for ever having me back. I'd be happy to do this again with you again and again. Let me know.
Perfect. Well, thanks a lot, and talk to you soon. You can follow our series, Careers in Cannabis, as well as more great shows like this one at TRICHOMES.com. If you're a member of the cannabis community and you have a story you want to share with us, please reach out. You can reach the show via emailing careersincannabis@trichomes.com. Please take a second to subscribe to the podcast and write a review. It really helps others find the show. You can also join in the discussion with industry insiders by visiting trichomes.com and following us on all social media. For trichomes.com, I'm Jarod Duggins. Be well, and thank you for listening.